Right now, more people are trying to get into law school than at almost any point in 20 years. Applications jumped 18% one year, then another 10% the year after that, and schools came nowhere close to adding the seats to keep up. So here's what that means for you. Getting in is the hardest it's been in over 15 years. A GPA that used to be a strong application now gets you waitlisted. A score that used to be average now puts you below the median at most law schools in the country. And I'm going to tell you something nobody else will. That's actually good news. Not for everybody, but for you if you're willing to do one thing most applicants won't. Because difficulty is a filter, and filters are good for the people who are on the right side of them. When something is this hard to get, two things are true. One, there is a real prize on the other side, or most people wouldn't fight this hard for it, and most of your competition is going to fold. They'll panic, they'll wing it, they'll apply soft, and they're just going to hope. Which means anybody willing to take this seriously and actually prepare has never had a bigger edge. But here's the catch. Getting in is only half the fight. At the exact moment law school got this hard to enter, the payoff split in two. Some schools launch you into a six-figure career, others bury you in debt with nothing to show for it. And the schools on the losing side are hiding which is which behind employment numbers that are flat out fake. I'm going to prove that with their own data. So the hard part isn't getting in, it's getting into the right school. I just pulled 15 years of data on every ABA approved law school in the country to show you how the bar got this high, why getting in stopped being enough, and how you can land on the winning side instead of the losing one. For those who don't know me, my name is Steve Schwartz. I've been teaching the LSAT for the past 20 years. I raised my own score up from a 152 to a 175. I've spent the past 20 years helping other students do the same. So know that going in, I'm not anti-law school. I make my living getting people into law school. And that's why I care whether the deal is still good. Now, you should know first that getting to law school is harder than it's been in 15 years on every number that matters. Everybody obsesses over the LSAT, but the quiet killer is actually your GPA. In 2011, a 3.5 GPA put you at or above the median at 2 out of 3 law schools in the country, a strong application almost everywhere. Today, a 3.5 GPA is below the median at 3 out of 4 schools. So the same GPA that used to beat most schools now loses to most schools. Now, you didn't get worse, of course, the bar just moved. Across the whole field, the typical law school's median GPA climbed from 3.39 in 2011 to 3.67 in 2025. And it went up almost every single year since 2015 and never once came back down. No dip, no relief here, a steady ratchet for a decade. So if you've got a 3.5 GPA and you feel safe, you're not. You are below the middle of the pack at most law schools in America. Now the LSAT, same story. The typical median was at 157 in 2011. Then the crash hit, most applications collapsed, schools got desperate, and by 2016, the typical median had dropped to 154, but then it came roaring back. Today it's a 159, the highest in that 15-year record, higher than before the crash. So two people with the same score, 154. One applies in 2016, one applies today in 2026. In 2016, a 154 made you dead average, and schools threw scholarship money at you because they were starving for applicants. Today, that same 154 puts you below median at most law schools. The only thing that changes is the year that you apply. And I tracked the same schools across all 15 years of data. 128 of them got harder to get into. Only 19 of them got easier to get into. Even at regional schools, they've raised the bar as well. And there is a reason. At 2011, there were 148,000 law students in the country. Today, about 116,000. So the market lost more than a fifth of its seats and never got them back. Fewer seats, stronger applicants fighting over them, and a higher bar on both numbers. And again, hard is a filter, and filters are good if you're on the right side of it. A brutal bar tells you that there is a real prize on the other side. People don't fight this hard over nothing. But the prize is not spreading evenly anymore. It is concentrating at the top. So clearing the bar isn't enough. It's just the entry fee. The school that you land at decides almost everything. Now, know that most of your competition is going to fold. When something gets this hard, the average applicant panics, they wing the test, they apply soft and they hope, they tell themselves their GPA is going to carry them, but it won't. Most law schools weight your LSAT score more heavily than your undergraduate GPA, so the LSAT score is everything. Now, the average law student who graduated last year left more than $112,000 in debt just for law school on top of whatever you owed from college. If you add in 3 years of rent and food, the all-in cost runs around $165,000 for an in-state student at a public school. Private schools run higher. And of course, things changed this summer. For the past 20 years, paying for law school was easy through the federal loan called Grad Plus, which let you borrow your entire cost of attendance from the government. Whatever the school charged, the government would lend you, but that program ends July 1st, 2026. Gone for anyone starting after that date. In its place, you've got a hard cap. The government will now lend you max $50,000 a year, $200,000 total for the entire degree. And so the all-in cost at a lot of schools being higher than that means there is a gap between what law school costs and what the government will lend you. So what fills the gap? Private loans with higher interest and no income-driven repayment. None of those federal safety nets. It's a lot harder to walk away from that. And so you should know that the degree is more valuable if you look at the payoff, though. In big law, jobs at the biggest law firms, 500 plus lawyers, the starting salaries could be north of $200,000 a year. In 2011, only 1 in 15 graduates landed one of those big law jobs, only 6.5%. By the class of 2024, that nearly tripled. Almost 1 in 5 graduates got those jobs, best stretch in a generation. But that same big law number, the one that nearly tripled, for the class of 2025, it went down from 8,500 jobs approximately to down to 7,800 jobs, almost 8% down in a single year. And when the ABA released that 2025 data, the headline was record employment. The rate ticked up to 87.7%, the highest ever. Deans emailed it out. Reporters called it a recovery, but it's not true. It is not. It is a lie. It's not made up, of course, but it's a true number used to tell a lie because the employment rate is a fraction. Jobs on top, graduates on the bottom. But this year, the number of actual legal jobs fell by about 2,200, down 6.5%. The market lost jobs, but the graduating class shrank faster by about 2,700 people, down 7%. And so the top of the fraction fell, but the bottom of the fraction fell faster, and so the percentage went up, even though the actual number of jobs went down. If hiring had just held flat, with way fewer people competing, unemployment should have dropped, but instead the share of graduates unemployed and looking went up from 4.65% to 4.93%. Fewer people in the race, more of them came up empty. Then you've got school-funded jobs as well, kind of hiding the numbers there a little bit. Schools basically paying their graduates to work, helping to boost up those employment numbers. The 14 most elite law schools hold more than half of all the school-funded jobs in America. Yale is now paying 8.6% of its own class. Cornell went from 0.5% to 3% in a single year. Texas quadrupled its share, and the rankings count those jobs exactly the same as a real job at a real firm. In other words, a Yale grad that Yale is paying counts identically to one at a top New York firm. And US News doesn't tell the difference. And the ABA also changed their calculations. For the class of 2025, they quietly removed the category that flagged school-funded jobs and folded them into the regular buckets. And so those jobs that used to carry an asterisk now don't. So step back for a second. The market is shrinking. The top firms are hiring fewer people. The elite schools are papering over the gap by hiring their own graduates. And the headline goes up that graduate classes are getting smaller. So every signal points the same way. Now, let's talk about what happens next. First-year classes are filling back up fast. Applications jumped 18% for the students who started last fall, then another 10% for the classes starting this fall. 2 straight years of big increases, the largest applicant pool in over a decade. The schools can't grow as fast because they only have so many seats. And seats did grow a little bit, which means the classes enrolling right now are bigger than the unusually small ones from past years. And so my prediction is that the job market's going to be tough in a couple of years. And so you're going to want to be on the better end of that divide. You want to be on the big law side of that divide, rather where you're getting 6-figure jobs, ideally 200,000 plus, rather than on the bottom end only making 50 to 60. And of course, if you want to do public interest or you want to work at a small firm, that's wonderful, but you got to go in with your eyes wide open, not paying sticker tuition for a job that will not allow you to pay off that debt. And so if you want to get into a better law school for the big law jobs, or you want to get full tuition covered, if you want to get a full ride at a lower ranked school, the path forward is the same. It's based on the strength of your LSAT score. Your GPA is probably already pretty fixed at this point, but your LSAT score is the biggest factor you can impact. If you can get a higher LSAT score, you can get more scholarship money. You can get into a better law school as well. If you want my help getting those better outcomes, I'm happy to help you out. I'm offering free LSAT tutoring for everybody watching this now or later. The link to book that free tutoring lesson with me personally is unpluggedprep.com/start. The link is below the video on YouTube, pinned in the chat on YouTube, in my bio on TikTok and IG. I've also put together a free LSAT cheat sheet to help you jumpstart your LSAT prep. You can grab that free download PDF at unpluggedprep.com/cheat sheet. The link is below the video, pinned in the chat, in my bio as well. Now, I see questions here in the chat. Happy to address anything I can, anything at all on LSAT and law school admissions. Feel free to drop in your questions. I'll get to those I feel best equipped to answer. I see Ava's asking about stats, 163 LSAT, 3.7 GPA. The last best semesters are a 4.0. So we have an upward trend on the GPA. That's fantastic. The LSAT's a bit on the lower side, though, and the question then becomes, what law schools are you targeting, and what are their medians? A 3.7 GPA is relatively strong. I spoke earlier about the GPA inflation, and so if you're looking to go to a top 14 law school, you should know the GPA medians range from 392 to 399. The LSAT medians range from 170 to 174. And so you're below on the numbers. The GPA is harder to improve if you're already finishing up your undergrad, but the LSAT, of course, is still a big needle mover for you. If you can retake the LSAT and get it up 5-10 points, you're going to be in a much better position. I would love for you to match that 3.7 GPA with an even better LSAT score to compensate and offset it, just given the rampant grade inflation boosting up those GPA medians. And so if you can get 5-10 points more, you're going to have radically different and better outcomes for your law school admissions. If you want to talk through what your prep plan could look like, you can reach out and book the free tutoring with me. The link's below the video, in the chat, in my bio as well. Coming up, you've got the LSAT offered 4 times later this calendar year. You've got August, September, October, November. You could take any one of those LSATs. You could take all of those LSATs and apply to law school this fall. It's kind of crazy how a single day, 2.5 hours weighs more heavily than all of your undergrad combined, but that's how the system is designed. We're not going to change it. We just got to work within it. NY2CA is asking, why are so many schools not making decisions? Because they don't have to, and because they are flooded with applicants. As I mentioned, law school applicant numbers are up year over year for the past 2 consecutive years, up 18%, last cycle up 10% this cycle, and not slowing down anytime soon, it seems. And so basically law schools are inundated with applications, and they don't have the staff to wade through all of those. Additionally, they have no incentive to get back to you fast. They want to see who else is going to come along with strong numbers. And even some of those folks who took the June LSAT are still going to start law school in 2 to 3 months. Law schools want to see what those June LSAT numbers come back looking like, and those scores are not coming out for another 2 weeks and change. And so law schools hold all the cards. They can make you wait. They can see who else will come along, and they can make a more informed decision. Know that for your benefit, law schools don't care when you apply. They care about the strength of the numbers that you apply with. And so it used to be that applying to law school in January or February was too late to get into better schools or to get scholarship money. That's no longer the case. And so now you could even take the LSAT in April and start law school 4 months later. June, of course, is pretty late. Most law schools will not take the results of the June LSAT, but a couple will. And sometimes you can even apply past the deadline. All you got to do is ask. And so what you can do if you've already applied and you're not retaking the LSAT is you just send a letter of continued interest, reiterating your interest in the school. You say, hey, so-and-so law school, you're still my top choice, still my number one. If I was accepted, I would go in a heartbeat. Give them an update on what you've been up to since you last applied. If you got a promotion at work, if you got an honor or an award or some kind. And if you, of course, you retook the LSAT, mention that as well. So you've been waitlisted by a lot of schools. Yeah, send all of them letters of continued interest. Srikar's asking, Unc, how do I get a 170 within a month? Asking for a friend. Okay, well, the good news is there's no LSAT within a month. So you've actually got 2 months. Speaking now in mid-June, the next LSAT coming up is the August LSAT in 2 months. So you've really got 2 months to get yourself up to a 170. I'll answer your question with a question though. Where are you currently scoring? How many hours can you put in per day and per week? How long have you been studying for? And what resources are you using? All of this will impact your ability to improve and will impact the advice that I would give you for how to get up to that 170. If you've just been self-studying with LSAT for Dummies and ChatGPT and you're not taking a proper course or getting any coaching, there's untapped potential because when you're studying on your own with subpar resources, you don't know what you don't know. But once we add some support into the mix, there's usually a pretty quick score boost, meaning there's going to be a lot of low-hanging fruit. Once we add that personalized support into the mix, if we can help you correct a misconception regarding a particular question type, if we can help you find a more efficient approach, then there's usually some pretty easy points right out there at the start. We also want to know how much time can you put in. If you can put in only 1 or 2 hours a day, it's not a whole lot. If you can put in 3, 4 hours a day, you're going to improve faster. It's okay if you do a bit less on weekdays, a bit more on weekends, of course. We personalize every study program to the individual student, considering your starting point, your goal score, your time frame for those asking about what our programs cost. We personalize every program to the individual student. It's not a one size fits all because someone aiming for a 170 or 175 in 2 months is going to need a different program than somebody who's aiming to do that in 2 weeks or someone who wants to do it in 6 months. We also look at how much time can you put in when designing your study plan. Are you taking 1 exam a week? Are you taking 2 exams a week? How much time do you have to review? Are you going to do 1 coaching session a week or 2 or 3 coaching sessions a week? And of course, where are you starting? Are you brand new to the LSAT or have you been at it for a while? And again, if you want to talk through the particulars beyond what I can do in the context of a live stream like this, you can book the free tutoring with me and we'll talk through it more. User 3143 is asking, I have a 2-year work gap for medical issues. How badly will that affect my application? I don't think that'll pose a problem. Just write an addendum explaining that. That's a totally fair and valid reason. That's what addenda were created for, is for unique situations where you want to share some context on a gap in your resume, for example. That's certainly a valid reason. And so just document that and it shouldn't harm you in any way. Big Papa's asking, what's the median entrance score in GPA? Because I had 2 years ago a 146 with the logic games and a 3.7 GPA. So I quoted medians earlier, but the thing is that it's more useful to look at the median for an individual law school, not in aggregate, because there's a wide range of law schools. There's approximately 200 ABA accredited law schools, and they all have their own unique requirements. And so you want to know, I'm trying to get into this law school or that law school. What kind of numbers do I need to be competitive? If you can apply with an LSAT and a GPA above the medians, you've got a good shot at getting in. And the higher they are, the more likely you are to get significant scholarship money, maybe even a full ride, depending. A 3.7 GPA is not bad. It's above some GPAs, medians, below other GPA medians. A 146 is, frankly speaking, on the lower side. You want to ideally have at least a 155, 160 minimum to get into a law school worth attending. And you'd ideally want to have closer to a 165 plus to both get into law schools worth attending and also get scholarship money. And of course, things have changed because logic games is no longer on the LSAT, which in a certain sense is good news because you can then narrow your focus to the other sections of the LSAT, being, of course, logical reasoning and reading comprehension. LSAC removed the logic games section about 2 years ago and replaced it with a second score logical reasoning section. And so logical reasoning being 2/3 of the test, you want to spend more time there, focus there, and any gains you make in your understanding of logical reasoning will be doubled across the 2 sections. Now I see a follow-up about master's degrees. Master's degrees, as Apples is saying, or as Phaedra is saying, is like a soft factor. It's not calculated into your GPA. Law schools only calculate with your undergraduate GPA and your LSAT score. That's what they report to the American Bar Association, which in turn is where U.S. News pulls from for inclusion in the U.S. News rankings, but they don't consider master's degree GPA specifically. Of course, they'll see it for context It's like a soft, though it doesn't really count in the same way. C63 is asking if I have a 3.8 GPA and a mid to high 170s, what are my chances of getting a full ride to a T14? So actually, a 3.8 GPA is a great GPA, but it is technically speaking below the T14 GPA medians, which range from 392 to 399. So it's possible that, of course, your higher LSAT will offset the GPA being a little bit below the medians, but while you might get in, I'm not sure that you're going to get scholarship money. I think anybody getting a full ride to a T14 is a pretty long shot. But cast a wide net, blanket all of them, and this is where having a unicorn soft, having some incredible work experience or resume could help make the difference in that instance. Just scanning through for other questions here. Apples is saying I'm practicing 10 LSAT logical reasoning questions a day, getting most of them correct. That's awesome. Congrats. Keep at it. We then want to level up. Can you do 15 a day? Can you do 20 a day? Can you do a full section? Of course, depends when you're taking the LSAT. That'll determine how much time you should be putting in the short term. But if you're taking the LSAT this fall, I would want you to level it up. Do a full section when you can here and there. Take a full practice test once a week. Review it in depth, because the thing is that it's not enough to get the questions right. You've got to get them right under test day conditions, considering pacing and time management and endurance. So you don't want to break the chain. You want to keep that habit of 10 a day, but then build up on it more and more over time, because we want to work on your pacing and your endurance and your stamina as well. If you have a longer time frame, of course, take it slow and steady, but if you're taking it this year, I would level up. Phaedra is asking, what do you consider a unicorn soft? So unicorn soft would be anything that is impressive, that blows the mind, that is unique in some way, that will make law school admission officers sit up and take notice. It could be things like holding a local political office. It could be, for example, a Fulbright scholarship, a Rhodes scholarship, anything unique and impressive that most people don't have by definition. So if it's anything standard that wouldn't raise eyebrows, it's probably not a unicorn. Unicorns by definition are unique, right? So I can't give examples that will necessarily be useful or instructive. It's the sort of thing you know when you see it. But those are some examples that might help you get a little bit of, shed a little bit of light on that. Big Papa's asking, so where you work matters, question mark? Yeah, I mean, work experience matters. Doesn't matter as much as LSAT and GPA, but it's important. If you have legal work experience, you certainly want to highlight that. Law schools always like to see legal work experience, because it shows that you have real world exposure to the practice of law rather than just pop culture portrayals of the law, which can, of course, be misleading. Real life is not like Suits or Better Call Saul, for example, and they want to know that you know that. So whatever you have, of course, highlight it on your application, in your essays, in your rec letters. Bring that to bear if you can. CC63 is asking, took my exam a couple days ago. Should I practice argumentative writing, or should I take it without practicing? Well, if you're asking like that, I mean, I'm going to say, yeah, practice it. Do a practice sample or two, have somebody else look it over and give you feedback. I don't think it's worth overly stressing about, though. For argumentative writing, since it's unscored, law schools don't care that much about it relative to the scored portions of the LSAT, but give it your full effort. You're basically writing a clean, structured essay with a clear topic sentence, a clear intro paragraph, a couple body paragraphs, and conclusion paragraph as well. Take your full time on it, the 15 minutes to plan your essay, 35 minutes to write it, making a clear, structured argument, laying out the case for the argument that you're making, the side that you're picking and why, backing it up with your examples, acknowledging the strengths of any other position, but still coming down on your side clearly and succinctly. And then restating your conclusion, your thesis statement, your argument in the conclusion paragraph as well. You should know that law schools will not, that LSAC will not release your LSAT score to you until you have completed the writing samples. So don't wait too long to submit it. You took your LSAT a couple days ago. Do a practice sample or two if you want. Then ideally take it this week so that you're not going to be delayed in getting your score back in a couple weeks. When people don't get their scores back on score release date, it's usually because they didn't do their writing sample on time, and you want LSAC to have plenty of time to review it in case it got flagged for whatever reason. You want to have it done well in advance. Also, for those who are on a longer time frame, you should know that LSAC has indicated they will score the writing sample sometime in the next couple of years. They haven't indicated exactly when, and when they do, of course, they will give plenty of notice in advance. But law schools are pushing LSAC to score the writing sample because the LSAT's never had a score writing portion, and law schools want to get an objective metric evaluation of an applicant's writing ability. And with AI aiding people in writing their application essays, law schools want an unfiltered look at your true writing ability to get a real sense of what your capabilities are when they know that nobody else could have helped you at all. Zawad is asking, how can I prepare for the LSAT even if I don't yet have a test date in mind? That's totally fine. I mean, you don't need to have a specific test date in mind to start studying for the LSAT. There's thousands and thousands of actual released LSAT questions available to you to study from. There are approximately 60 numbered practice tests in the LSAC Law Hub platform. You get 4 of them for free. You get the others with an official Law Hub Advantage subscription, well worth the investment. And so if you're on a longer time frame, if you're taking the LSAT after this calendar year, you could still start building a strong foundation in the different LSAT sections, the different LSAT question types. You could take a cold diagnostic test on the Law Hub site for free just to get a sense of where you stand. Don't over-index on it. Don't get discouraged by it, though. Just use it as an indication of where you stand today, as a benchmark from which to measure your later future progress. Know that you have some work ahead of you, but that's okay. I could divide LSAT prep into 5 major phases using the LASER approach to LSAT prep. LASER is an acronym standing for Learning, Accuracy, Sections, Exams, and Review. It's the cornerstone of my courses and my coaching programs. The L phase is for learning, building a strong foundation, getting the lay of the land in the different sections and the different question types. A is for accuracy, drilling questions by type to better understand the proper perspective from which to view each section and each question type. Then you have S for sections, doing individual timed 35-minute sections to work on your pacing and your time management. E is for exams and endurance, doing full-length timed exams. And then R is for review, using the Socratic review method, which of course should be used throughout your prep process. Now, the exams and endurance phase, I would say for later in your prep, you don't want to burn through lots of previously administered exams. You want to save those to measure yourself as test day approaches. But the foundational phase, the learning phase, you could do that now. Some folks will do that by reading textbooks and watching videos. I wouldn't spend too much time getting bogged down in those 500-page LSAT prep phone books, though. It just doesn't take that long to explain something, and the prep books oftentimes weigh folks down and get them stuck and never get out of that phase. And so you could watch shorter, bite-sized, concise videos giving you a quick rundown of what you've got to know before jumping into a particular question type. I have a lot of those on the LSAT Unplugged YouTube channel, for example, is a good starting point. You could also drill questions by type if you want. In logical reasoning, for example, there are 15 different types of logical reasoning questions. You've got, for example, strengthen, weaken, flaw, parallel, resolve, and so on. There's also reading comp to work on. That's a whole third of the test. Don't neglect all that because it is important as well, and you can improve your own reading comp, contrary to what some folks say. Logical reasoning, though, is 2/3 of the test, so I would start there. In logical reasoning, the 3 most common question types are necessary assumption, inference, and flaw. So I would start there before focusing on the less common types like evaluate the argument or parallel reasoning that everybody hates, but just don't show up that frequently, though. And so for that reason, I wouldn't spend as much time on those until you've locked down the more common types. Happy to address any follow-ups on that if anybody would like. And by the way, one thing we do for our students at LSAT Unplugged is we create for you a personalized study plan, laying out exactly what to do every single day from now till your test. So that's going to include when to drill LSAT questions by type, when to do timed practice sections to work on your pacing, when to take full-length timed practice tests as test day approaches. Everybody's got a different time frame, everybody's got a different goal, and everybody's got a different amount of time they can put in per day and per week. If you're taking the LSAT in the next 2 to 4 months, we'll take a more intensive boot camp style approach, where we'll probably have you do at least 1 practice test a week, as well as 1 coaching session each week. If you've got a longer time frame, if you're taking the LSAT in 6 months to a year, we'll take a more slow and steady approach. We don't want to burn you out. Typically having 1 or 2 days off a week is well worth the time, just because we don't want you to burn out, since the LSAT is a skills-based test. It takes time to learn the skills of the LSAT. It takes time to build that foundation. You don't cram it, you don't memorize it. It's a more of a slow and steady thing. Over Juice Melon saying, I just found out I have stage 3 cancer. How hard is the accommodations process? Wow. Well, thank you for trusting me to share your story here. In terms of accommodations, LSAC has become a lot more liberal in granting accommodations for medical issues, as well as other reasons like whether it's ADHD or anxiety. And so if you can provide documentation to LSAC with a doctor's note, for a note from any qualified professional like a primary care, a psychiatrist, or any other medical professional, you'll probably get what you ask for. Just make sure that you submit that documentation by the deadline, whatever it might be, because they are pretty strict about that. And of course, call if you need to, follow up if you need to, and give them the particulars of what kind of accommodations you're asking for. And as I see that Apples is saying, health is number one. Don't worry about law school till you get your health taken care of. Totally agree. Couldn't have said it better myself. Checking for other questions here. Aiden's asking, theoretically, what if you get the best LSAT score possible, but like a 2.0 GPA? So the best LSAT score possible, technically speaking, is of course a 180, a perfect LSAT score. A higher LSAT score can do a lot to offset a lower GPA. However, a 2.0 GPA is pretty low, even as far as low GPAs are concerned. And so the low GPA will still raise some concerns about your academics. You're going to want to explain that GPA. What were the circumstances under which you earned that GPA? Was there a medical issue? Was there a family issue? Was there a personal matter of some kind? Were you working during school, or was it a combination of multiple factors I just mentioned? Whatever the reasons were for the lower GPA, you want to explain that. You don't want to ever leave LSAC law schools with any unanswered questions or any red flags or concerns about the circumstances under which you went through undergrad, because their question is going to be, how do we know it's not going to happen again? Some people are splitters, of course. High LSAT score, low GPA. There are plenty of people whose academics, their GPAs, don't reflect their true potential. But law schools are still going to want to know, hey, like, what's going on here? Will this person succeed in law school? And so being a splitter is fine, but there is a such thing as a too low GPA. And so you want to document the reasons for that low GPA. Not to belabor the point, but definitely a case where you want to have an addendum. See a follow-up asking, should I explain a 3.5 GPA? Maybe. I mean, do you feel like you need to explain it? Are there particular circumstances that led it to be low? Especially if you have an outlier class or an outlier semester. If you can, of course, show an upward trend, that's nice to have. You definitely want to be able to demonstrate the upward trend in your GPA, meaning that if you had an off semester or an off year even, but then it was followed by better GPA, higher grades subsequently after the fact, that's going to help to show them, hey, like, we learned, we recovered, we bounced back. Yacht's asking, I got my fee waiver appeal rejected. I feel lost in how to study and how to pay for everything. Okay, so for those who aren't aware, the Law School Admission Council offers fee waivers, meaning that if you can demonstrate financial need on your tax returns, for example, then you could potentially get your LSAT fees covered, meaning you're not going to have to pay to take the LSAT. You'll also get free access to the LSAC Law Hub platform. You'll also get some free law school application materials as well, or free law school application submissions covered as well, your law school reports, for example. And so if you got it rejected when you first applied, you should certainly appeal it if you can. Sometimes you just need to give them more documentation. But that being said, even if you can't break through on that, there's a lot of free support out there. I offer some of it myself. For example, I'm offering a free LSAT tutoring lesson for everybody watching this now or later. You can book the free tutoring with me personally at unpluggedprep.com/start. The link's below the video on YouTube, pinned in the chat on YouTube, in my bio on TikTok and IG as well. I've also put together a free LSAT cheat sheet to help you jumpstart your LSAT prep. It's a quick reference on everything logical reasoning and reading comprehension. You can grab the free cheat sheet, download PDF at unpluggedprep.com/cheat sheet. The link is below the video, pinned in the chat, in my bio as well. Happy to help you out. Grab it already if you haven't. It's a quick rundown of everything that you'll see on the LSAT, both in logical reasoning and reading comprehension. And there's plenty more on the LSAT Unplugged YouTube channel as well, rundowns of every LSAT section, every LSAT question type in both logical reasoning and reading comprehension, also plenty of material on admissions as well. Anka's asking, how much does a high LSAT compensate for a mediocre personal statement? I mean, a lot, because your LSAT score weighs a lot more heavily than your application essays do. It goes LSAT number 1, GPA number 2, everything else a distant third, including your personal statement, your resume, your rec letters, and such. My question would be, though, why have a mediocre personal statement? In my view, there's no excuse to have a mediocre personal statement, because it's like an open book at-home exam. You have virtually unlimited time to polish and perfect it. So why would it be mediocre? Aside from it being take-home unlimited time open book, you can have literally anybody help you with your personal statement. Not saying they should write it for you, of course. I'm not saying that you should plagiarize it. Of course you shouldn't. You should write it yourself. But you can still get feedback from other people on it. You could show it to literally everybody to get guidance and advice and suggestions on how to improve it. So why wouldn't you go through round after round after round after round of revisions? Of course, there are rules around having AI help you with it. Some law schools ban you from using AI for it. Others require that you use AI to help you with your essay, which is weird, of course. Law schools don't know how to handle this, but regardless, I mean, you should run spell check and grammar check. You should, if you're permitted to, get feedback from AI and from other people on how you could make the writing better. Don't have AI write it for you, of course, because that'll be generic and terrible. But there are obvious AI tells. Believe me, law schools are looking at thousands of essays in a row, so they're going to tell which ones are AI written and which ones are not. There's a certain style that AI uses. But get feedback from other people to make your writing as strong as possible. There's no excuse not to do that. In a sense, of course, the LSAT is a more objective metric indicating what you're capable of, because you're not having AI do it for you and you're not having anybody else take it for you. You got to sit down yourself under proper conditions. And so it's a serious exam to study for, and you can improve significantly on it. And there's no reason not to, considering its importance, but no reason not to have your application essays be dynamite. And if you're concerned about your essays not being good, start now so that you have more time to revise them. The best writing happens over a longer period of time, where you write a draft, put it away for a week or so, come back, look at it again. Apples asks, once you're a lawyer, do people respect you more? Maybe. I mean, here's a fun experiment you could run. Go around and tell people that you're a lawyer, even when you're not. See how they greet you, see how they respond. Then, of course, be honest and tell them, hey, I'm not really a lawyer. It was just joking. It was just a test I'm running, an experiment, if you will. But some people will respect you more. Some might respect you less. I don't know that answering this one way or another is a reason to go to law school or not go to law school. Become a lawyer because you want to be a lawyer. If you don't, then don't. Don't do it just for the respect. It's a long, difficult journey to go on just for that reason alone. Do it because that's the career that you want to pursue. But I think that there's the old joke that your parents are only okay with you being a lawyer, doctor, and engineer, one of those three, right? So if doctor and engineer is not the path for you, maybe a lawyer is. If it lines up with your interests and your abilities and your career goals, then go for it. But don't do it for the respect, because you're the one who's got to do that job day after day. And money's nice, of course, but it's not the only reason to do something. Make sure that you're fulfilled by pursuing this path. But it can be an incredibly rewarding one, depending on what you do with the degree. Lance is asking, my LSAT GPA is likely going to be around a 2.8, but my diagnostic's in the 160s. Do I have a chance? Okay, so the 2.8 GPA is definitely on the lower side. Diagnostic in the 160s is promising. Yes, you have a chance at getting into some law school. But again, so I guess I'm asking, what is your chance of? Is it to get into a law school? Is it to get into a good law school? Is it to get scholarship money? Is it to get a full ride? There are a lot of different potential outcomes you could be shooting for with your LSAT prep and with your law school application. Are you saying that this is a cold diagnostic in the 160s? Because if so, that's a pretty strong starting point. It's higher and better than my starting point. If you put in the work starting there, you could certainly get into the 170s. And I would recommend that you shoot for that to get the best possible outcomes. Not only because it'll help you in general, but also because you're going to want to offset what is a relatively lower GPA with a stronger LSAT score, but you've got plenty of time to make that happen. And if you want my help getting into the 170s, getting a full ride to law school, getting into the strongest law school possible, I'm happy to help you out. If you haven't already, you can book the free LSAT tutoring lesson with me. The link to book that is unpluggedprep.com/start. The link is below the video on YouTube, pinned in the chat on YouTube, in my bio on TikTok and IG. For those just joining, I've also put together a free LSAT cheat sheet to help you jumpstart your LSAT prep. You can grab that free LSAT cheat sheet at unpluggedprep.com/cheat sheet. The link is below the video, pinned in the chat, in my bio on TikTok and IG. The cheat sheet's a quick reference on everything, both logical reasoning and reading comprehension, covering every LSAT section, every LSAT question type. Free PDF download you can grab, linked below the video. Apples is asking, why would somebody want to do defense work for big law? That's like so disgusting and boring. Okay, interesting question, right? Well, first off, I don't know that it's boring for everybody. I mean, presumably there are people who find things I find boring, who they would find it interesting. For example, I'm not a math person personally. I'm not the kind of person who would do well in accounting or actuarial work or tax law, but there are people who are fascinated by that. And if you want to call them nerds, so be it. But if they're happy and they're making a good living and doing productive work, that's helpful. In terms of big law, I'm not inclined to personally moralize about big law in aggregate. Of course, there are some big law firms that are defending corporations I would find reprehensible. I mean, the companies that defended big tobacco, for example, I can't see a good moral case for that. Or the companies defending, addictive social media companies as well, the law firms defending them. I think that we might view them the same way in coming decades. But outside of particular examples that don't play to your moral sensibilities, it's one big law firm against another big law firm defending two equal and opposite corporations. Maybe both of them are wrong in a certain sense. And so the question becomes, what are the particulars of their case? And I would, of course, encourage you to pursue a career that fills you up both financially, morally, ethically, spiritually, all of the above. But part of the law, as I see it, is about the technicalities of the law itself rather than what goes within it, right? So the question becomes, if you're a judge, we follow the letter of the law, and we're the highest allegiance is to the law itself, following the general principles as they are laid out, rather than what you are personally looking to do. And so can you help to advocate for your client within the container of the law itself? A bit more theoretical than I wanted to make my answer, but I hope it sheds a little bit of light here. I would recommend listening to some legal podcasts or reading some legal books or audiobooks if you can. There's a good legal podcast called Advisory Opinions that gets into analyzing Supreme Court cases, and it could help you maybe adopt a little more of a legalistic mindset in terms of what law firms and what the legal lawyers are doing when it comes to advocating for one side versus the other side, looking at the particulars of the law itself. So hope that helps somebody in terms of thinking through this a little bit more. I'll be back tomorrow, same time, same place, 2 p.m. Eastern, 1 Central, 11 Pacific, here on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, wherever you're watching this. If you find this helpful, please spread the word. The only way this grows is through word of mouth. I don't do any advertising for these lives, and the algorithm doesn't really boost them because they can't run ads during them. So I do appreciate your support, spreading the word. I'll see you all then. In the meantime, all the best. Take care. Thanks for joining.